You've got a fire in your belly, a passion to serve, and an insatiable drive to contribute. You know that if you can just get your message in front of the right people, you can change lives. But where to start? There are so many options, so many moving pieces. You get bogged down, overwhelmed, frustrated, while the burning desire to serve others consumes you. I know, I've been there. And these days I bring life-changing impact and value to people's lives through the creation of books, funnels, online courses and coaching programs, and virtual summits. This is the Call to Serve podcast. I'm Tim Cooper, and this is my journey. Just because something is complex doesn't make it better. In fact, quite the opposite is true. The simpler the process, the easier it is to relate that process and to perform that process, the quicker it is to perform that process, and the quicker to your result. I like to take the shortest distance from point A to point B. Right? I don't like to make things any harder or more complex than they need to be. But sometimes, unless of course you are a physicist or a brain surgeon or doing something that is very complex and complicated, sometimes when you just make things harder than they have to be. And in my personal experience, going back to when I was working in IT, I was working with one guy who just wrote this complex code. It just went on for pages and pages and pages. And he was using all these commands that just weren't used on a frequent basis. And I'd say to him, why are you making your code so complex? I mean, there's no need for it. You can achieve the same result through 2 or 3 lines of code that's easy to read. And I think in part, it's if you create something that only you can really understand and only you can maintain, you think that sort of secures your position that you can't be fired, you can't be replaced because you're the only one who can do something. And that's not a good way to think on so many levels, because at the end of the day, everybody is replaceable. Now, I talked about being made redundant from that software company, and this guy worked for that same software company. And even though he had this really complex coding style that only he could read and only he could debug, at the end of the day, that company moved all its development over to India. And so all of a sudden he was expendable, as was I. So I think people are kidding themselves when they think that they're in a position that only they can do and they can't be replaced. On the other hand, if you keep things simple, right? As I said, his complex code could have been cut down to 3 very easy, very readable lines of code, which would have done exactly the same thing, right? So we weren't cutting any corners. The exact same result could have been achieved with a lot simpler code. And then when you keep things simple, it's easy to fix problems when they arise. It's easy to maintain, and it's easy for somebody else to come along and maintain that code as well. So if something is easy, well laid out, easy to read and well documented, then it's not on your shoulders. They don't have to call you up every time there's an issue or whatever to resolve it, or if they need to add some more functionality, because any skilled programmer can go in and follow a well-documented, well-structured program. And the same thing happens in all of life. And the other thing too is that if you make things overly complex, then you do run the risk of problems, of bugs, of errors, because things are just so crazy. It's the same thing when it comes to building your websites and your funnels. You should keep those as simple as possible, because you've got to see, because initially your funnel probably won't work, and that's normal. You put something up on the internet and you run some traffic to it and you test it. And then you start to see, how can I increase conversions on this page? How can I increase sales on this page? How can I increase my upsells on this page? And if you make it such a complex web of, this goes to this page, this is all over here, and here's 15,000 emails down here, and there's just lines and stuff, and your funnel diagram just looks like a dog scratched it up. Where do you look if your funnel isn't performing? Where do you start? It's so complex. And once again, I've seen it. I've seen complex, just crazy complicated funnel diagrams and that sort of stuff drawn up by people who really like to get down in the weeds and get right down to the nitty-gritties. But if you try to put that up on the web, So it's a matter of keeping it simple. Set up your landing page, set up your sales page, set up your upsell page, and then basically it's 3 pages for you to look at. You're not getting enough leads coming through on your opt-in page. We'll look at changing up something on the opt-in page, maybe change the button text, or maybe change the headline, or something like that, and test again. Everything's a test. Test and repeat, test and repeat, test and repeat. Any honest marketer, even Russell Brunson, who is regarded as probably one of the best in the world, says his funnels don't perform at their optimum when they're first made. They're made via a framework and they're put out there, and then they're tweaked, then they're optimized, because you can only tell what's going to work and what's not going to work once it's out there. Okay? And so if something's really complex, you don't know where to start. Whereas if you just had a simple framework, you're not making, so you're getting opt-ins, but now your sales conversions aren't great. So let's concentrate on the sales page. Now have a small follow-up sequence in email, but don't plan 62 emails from the start, because where do you start? So just build slowly. So that is such an important aspect, because if you keep things simple and follow proven frameworks, then you will be getting the job done no matter what you're doing. You'll be getting your job done so much quicker, without the headaches, and they'll be easy to maintain, easy to update, easy to tweak and test. So don't look for complexity as being a wonderful thing. I think complexity is quite the opposite to being wonderful. A complexity just causes mayhem and hassle, and there's no clarity, and it's hard to maintain. And the same thing comes in your words, but I'll talk about your thoughts on your words in another episode. But I just wanted to share that with you, because I know there are some people out there who think that if things are really, really complex, then they're great, because it has to be better because it's so complex. And as I said, the simpler you make something, the quicker it is to implement, the quicker it is to publish, the easier it is to maintain and update. Okay, so I hope you found that information useful. If you're watching this on YouTube, you haven't done so already, please click the subscribe button and the little bell and give it a thumbs up. If you've got any questions or comments, please put them in the comments below. If you want to catch any of the previous episodes of Call to Serve podcast, there's a playlist over here that is all the episodes that have been published to date. If you're listening to this podcast on another platform and you found this information valuable, please follow the show and give it a review. And if there's a way for you to reach out via that platform, please do. If not, I'm always available at tim@timcooper.au. That's tim@timcooper.au. I'd really love to hear from you. Love your feedback, how I can improve or how I can help you. Okay, so that's it for the day. And until tomorrow, you take care.